Hi, I'm Lisa Peel, and I'm going to talk to you about the lesson study approach as the plan I've selected for my professional development plan. This concept of lesson study originated in Japan and began with exploring math lessons. The idea has evolved as an effective means of professional development here in the United States. Let's take a look at the characteristics, strengths, weaknesses, and questions or areas that concern me regarding implementation of this process in my organization. First, some of the key features or characteristics of the lesson study approach. As we saw in the lesson study approach video, the focus is on how to best meet the needs of learners. I've selected this approach for my professional development plan because I feel that faculty at the community college tend to focus on the objectives and may not see learners' individual needs as their responsibility. This approach, according to Wilberg and Brown, is two-pronged, with a critical look at the written curriculum and another perspective that examines issues students have with the learning content. Another characteristic of this approach that helps establish a meaningful environment for professional development is that it is grounded in student work and learning, which serves as the primary source of data, according to Cepeda. In lesson study groups, teachers participate in collaborative planning, implementation, and reflection. Therefore, trust is an essential component for teachers to feel safe and comfortable making mistakes. This process was outlined in the video and reminded me of Vygotsky's social learning theory that we employ with children, where a facilitator helps push teachers through their zones of proximal development. Likewise, teachers work in teams to negotiate the process and construct meaning through social interaction. The aha moment, clearly highlighted in the video, may also be documented in a written report. The reason I describe this process as messy is because the teachers in the video spent a lot more time working through the students' issues before arriving at the decision that their prompts were yielding undesired results. Cepeda speaks to this by suggesting the team needs to involve whether the learning problem actually originates with the learner or with the written taught curriculum. In other words, the teacher. By offering a relative connection that directly impacts a set of students, teachers find value in this professional development model. In fact, the National Education Association described it as the highest caliber of professional development. This process, described as cyclical, is something that many teachers learn in college and may be familiar with in practice. The difference lies in that it is a collaborative cycle and focuses on a particular lesson and research theme. According to Cepeda, this process leads to stronger collegial relationships. In the first step, the group identifies a research question or theme based on a student issue. In the video, the teachers identified retelling as the focus. From research that was collected previously at Delaware Tech, I know that as a whole, instructors have identified how do we get students to think critically about material as an area they would like to address in professional development. We have offered workshops on games, strategies, assignments, and best practices that teachers appreciate according to exit surveys. However, I know from the survey data that teachers fail to implement the strategies with fidelity due to lack of understanding, lack of ownership, or fear of failure. Therefore, this process allows teachers a safety net for taking that step together. They could meet as a team and identify a common objective that requires critical thinking and set up a time for implementation and observation. Another benefit of this process is that teachers would learn to be better observers, and observation is an important tool for formative assessment and informally checking to see that students are grasping material. This may challenge teachers at the college who, quote, cover material and only offer summative assessments. During implementation, step 3, a struggle I imagine that could happen is teachers may not feel comfortable having peers observe them. However, to counter this, the college does offer a peer observation course, which could provide guidance and incentivize this model. Finally, after the group has visited a teacher's classroom and made anecdotal records of the students, not the teacher, they can begin the discussion surrounding the lesson. As we saw in the lesson study process video, all of the focus was on student behavior and responses and a consideration to those patterns. Once teachers have reflected on the issue, they can identify modifications to improve the lesson. The cycle can then start again with a new goal or continue with the same issue for continued planning, observation, and reflection. Here I've identified some of the key benefits and drawbacks in a plus-delta chart. One benefit, according to Lewis, Perry, Hurd, and O'Connell, is the development of PCK, or content and pedagogical knowledge. As we saw in the lesson study video, teachers were learning pedagogy through the lens of their content. Another benefit is that as this goes on, the team may establish a bank of quality lessons. Since the lesson approach is job embedded, it can be meaningful to teachers. It even lends itself to Darling Hammond's 5 critical elements, including collaborative learning, a context for professional decisions, active learning, content and pedagogical knowledge, and sustained learning. Finally, this process helps teachers see long-term goals rather than getting bogged down in the day-to-day grind. This is especially important to my professional development plan because we have been working on written curriculum and using curriculum maps to identify gaps in instruction. And this would be the next logical step for teachers who are making adjustments based on this gap analysis. As far as the drawbacks, I noted that this is a process that originated in elementary school and is conducive to teams that plan together. At the college, planning teams are not well established. However, the Instructional Innovation Conference that's being planned for August is an event where we will teach how to collaborate for sustained professional learning. Therefore, I think we could discuss learning communities and job-embedded learning and offer the lesson study approach as one forum for teacher groups to choose for their professional development. The concerns I've listed here as to how to teach the teams what is expected, how to set aside time for this important work, how to establish trust for people who have already expressed a fear of failure, and how to identify who should facilitate are all directly related to the professional development plan I am designing and issues that exist at my institution. To address these issues, I will be drawing on my knowledge from a previous course called Coaching Teachers, during which we learned the significance of trust building as a critical first step in these sorts of professional development settings. We have discussed how the Instructional Innovation Network members will serve as co-facilitators with a member of content area teams. Therefore, I think the IIN members should use the reflection and discussion suggestions from Chapter 10 of CEPEDA. The Atlas model specifically would be particularly enlightening for content area teams and serve as universal guidance for the August sessions to model this practice. I also think providing this in a Google Doc for teams to fill in and document progress according to the steps in the Atlas model garners buy-in from administration. This leads me to the questions I have. The key questions, how do I gain administrative support, who should facilitate the groups, and how do I get colleagues to feel comfortable, remain for me. The first is most daunting. I think the administrative team, specifically deans, would be supportive of the professional development initiative if they understand it and see the values highlighted. A presentation like this might serve to inform them. However, if they are providing additional time for this sort of work, it will be more challenging and they will want to see specific outcomes. I'm considering how this might fit into my writing for my ELP and if it's a problem that I could address. I think I've answered the question of who should facilitate the groups and how to ease instructors into teams that can share openly based on my prior knowledge from the Coaching Teachers class. However, I'm leaving these questions here because of the risk involved. Overall, these aren't questions that I can't answer, but rather concerns that I feel could sabotage effective implementation of this model. According to Lewis et al., these challenges are valid in regard to instructional improvement.